Hello. Happy Wednesday evening to everybody. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. This is Amy Gottliff. I'm the Vice President of Conservation at Oakland Zoo, and you're watching Cocktails and Conservation. We are very happy to have you joining us. All right. Good to see people joining. We're going to talk about moon bears today. We are very excited. We're excited to have you, and we have the most amazing guest ever. So prepare to be inspired. Again, I am Amy, VP of Conservation at Oakland Zoo, and I say this every time, and I mean it. What a joy it is to share this world with animals, with wildlife, with nature. It's what makes living on this planet amazing. And along with the joys, there are so many challenges. But that's why we do this, because we really want to expose our community and ourselves to all the hope there is that is out there. There is some good news, there's some forward thinking, and that's what we like to do when we gather today. So, everyone, we want to welcome you back to Cocktails and Conservation.
You're watching Cocktails and Conservation, where we rendezvous with inspiring wildlife conservation leaders from around the planet, hear their stories, learn how they protect the animals we love, and how each of us can help. With our featured custom cocktail, together we toast to taking action for wildlife.
All right, so we are toasting to taking action for wildlife. This is Cocktails and Conservation. I'm Amy from Oakland Zoo, and we are so glad you're joining us. Welcome back. So, Cocktails and Conservation is just our way of gathering safely. We are off, in our own little stratospheres, but together. We hope to get together again very soon. But we're enjoying this time. We're meeting different wildlife heroes from around the world, hearing their stories and joining their solutions and getting to be with people like you. So, as I welcome you, I'd love to hear who you are, say hi, and where you're tuning in from, and how you found out about this. How did we get so lucky to have you joining us? And while you're doing that, I want to say that if you would like to start your drink, which is called the Moon Bear Rise, the recipe is going to be there in the chat. So perhaps you're watching from your kitchen and you want to stir it up. I'm excited to try my Moon Bear Rise. All right. So tonight, we have such an amazing guest, Jill Robinson from Animals Asia. Before we get too into Jill, I want to say that I love this motto. It's on a lot of Animals Asia t-shirts these days, and it says, "The only cure is kindness." I love that. So I want you guys to think about that. The only cure is kindness. What does that mean to you? And why do you think that helps animals when we say that? While you're thinking about that, I'm going to continue to welcome you. Again, you're at Cocktails and Conservation, and I want to say welcome to Oakland Zoo community, Animals Asia community, anyone from AZA, lovers of bears, lovers of Asia, Oakland Zoo, Friends of the Wild, and anyone who just cares about animals like all of us. We are really glad you're here. And also want to say that this has been an amazing year at Oakland Zoo. We've buckled down on the issue of the illegal wildlife trade. We have an exhibit. We've had a lot of different events. We've had a lot of different cocktails and conservation about this, and have welcomed people talking about pangolins and chimps and cotton top tamarins. If you want to watch any of those older episodes, you can just go to the Cocktails and Conservation link, and you can also join our Cocktails and Conservation group for upcoming events. We have one more for 2021. It's on November 10th, and it's with Big Life, and they're a fantastic organization in Kenya, helping rhinos and elephants and other big life. We also are inviting everyone to be part of forward thinking problem solving with the illegal wildlife trade, because you might not know that something you do is actually causing problems. Maybe it's something you do on vacation, or something you bought, or even a video you watched that you forwarded that wasn't exactly helpful to animals. So when you take a pledge with us, we are going to send you these emails that are really informative and can really help you navigate some of those trickier illegal wildlife issues that we don't want to be part of. So take the pledge, and the pledge is in the chat. All right, enough of that. I now want to talk about our guest. Our guest is someone I've known a very long time. She's always been pretty much the nicest conservationist welfare person I've ever met. I can say that straight up. Um, this is Jill Robinson. She is not just nice. She has got such a strong will. She's so imaginative and creative in her solutions, so patient, so respectful of the people she works with. She's been able to take an issue that seemed unsurmountable and just create a movement and change in this world around this amazing moon bear. Jill has so many awards and accolades and distinguishes and all this celebrity endorsement. She's pretty amazing. I think a lot of people recognize it. I could go on about just her for an hour, but before we do that, we can barely contain ourselves. Jill, I'm sure you hear these bear jokes all the time, but I'd like to welcome Jill Robinson. Jill's getting a countdown on her end, and there she is. Hello, Jill. I'm going to unmute you and again say, hi, Jill.
Hello, Amy. Lovely, lovely, lovely to see you. And I've been watching all these comments coming in as well. You've got people pouring bourbon and obviously getting ready for a good time this evening. So,
yeah, exactly. Like you're having your morning drink, we're pouring our bourbon. So good morning to you there in Hong Kong.
Hello there.
Jill, so, I've said this before, this is a casual thing where we're just going to chat and really get inspired. It's not formal. And we're also going to invite the audience to send in their comments and questions. So we might pull them in as well. And we're just going to start with you. First of all, where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Hong Kong after a Typhoon 8 has just breezed through the territory. So we're just all sort of clearing up the debris from that.
Oh my goodness. All right.
But I've been stuck here for nearly 2 years, Amy, which is the most frustrating thing of all, because, throughout these past few decades, I've always said that I've never been in one place more than 2 weeks at a time. So I'm always going back to our sanctuaries in China and Vietnam, or, going around the world and just talking to people and doing presentations. And it's crazy. It's 2 years nearly, just being here in Hong Kong. And it's, wow, it's the most surreal experience ever. So.
Oh my goodness. That's,
yeah.
Well, I have a question for you later that particularly pertains to that. So I'll remind you when it's coming up. But that must be just so frustrating.
Well, my dogs are pleased. My dogs are really happy. So I will say that.
Yeah, there's a universal dog happiness going on across the planet. So what are your days like? So I want to hear both, like, how are you doing work? And then I also want to hear, like, what do you do for fun? What do you do to stay mentally sane there?
Oh gosh, the days it's really funny. You just wake up, you think, yep, Groundhog Day, because I love what we do, and of course there's Zoom and Skypes and everything. So we're keeping in constant contact, with the sanctuaries every day, with our team across the world. It's probably busier than it's ever been as well, just because we are having to catch up on, more on social networks and on meetings online and things. So it's weird, but it's there's never a day that's the same, to be honest with you, except that you're doing it all now from the office at home or from the office in Hong Kong, Hong Kong office. And I'm just not on a plane all the time, so yeah, a bit surreal, but
all right then, Jill, what do you do to stay sane and have fun?
Oh goodness, I don't know. I mean, I love. I had a doctor friend who always said to me, Jill, just have 2 hours of the day devoted to whatever you want to do. Switch off, do nothing, just do something that just brings you back to earth and stuff. And I guess mine is at the end of the evening. Right at the end, sort of from about 8 or 9 o'clock. I just like to switch off totally, if I can, and just watch rubbish TV and, just have a nice supper and have the dogs and just thank the heavens for another day that's gone without too much drama. And we do get a lot of drama. That's the thing with Animals Asia. And we'll be talking to you obviously about that, whether it's a rescue of bears or elephants or, whether it's something that's happened at one of the sanctuaries. There is always something. So if I can switch off at the end of the day, wow, that's food for the soul.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you have dogs, so I'm sure that's.
I have a two-legged rescue dog from China. So she walks on her front legs. She absolutely refuses to go. She was fitted with a trolley with an orthopedic surgeon, and she absolutely hates it, refuses it. She's 15 now, and she still goes up and downstairs, toddles around, and I've got her daughter as well, who survived distemper. So they are my joy from China.
That's amazing. Wow, I'm trying to picture that. That's incredible. I love it. What an inspiration.
Yeah.
All right, Jill, you probably had this question a million times. So this isn't the question about how did you first come to love bears, but how did you first even become someone who was so dedicated to animals way back?
Oh, Amy, I mean, I always say I loved animals before I could actually say the word animal. My auntie always tells me a story. So my mother died when I was a baby, so I never knew her. So my sister and I got raised by, a combination of my auntie and uncle and then my father and da-da-da. And my auntie would always say to me that she had to keep me on reins when I was about 3 years old, because if ever I saw a dog or a cat across the road, I would charge across the road to try and stroke these animals. So it's just something inherent that you can't really describe. I'm sure that many of you listening in know that feeling. And then I went on when I was at school to work at a veterinary practice, in the evenings, in the school holidays. I went on to work in a cattery. I cleaned out cat poop every day. So, I just, anything that I could do with animals, I would do. So, yeah.
Right. Love it. I think there must be a gene. Well, we've even had a couple questions. I love the question, what's the difference between a sun bear and moon bear? But I thought we would just start with bears and ask you, what, for those that don't know, what is a moon bear?
Oh, goodness. It is, well, I'll have to say, it's the most intelligent, forgiving animal on the planet. They are incredible. They're obviously an Appendix 1 endangered species. They roam across the Asia continent. They're moon bears because they're called moon bears because of the beautiful yellow crescent moon of yellow on their chests. They're crepuscular. They're active at dawn and dusk. They're, like all bears, not said to be a social species, but, we've rescued now nearly 650 bears in China and Vietnam. And we find that they can be so sociable when they want to be as well, especially the youngsters. It's just a joy to look after them and care for them and tell their story.
I love it. And, all right, so here comes the question. This is a very iconic photo, but I can't not share it. This was quite a moment that changed things for you. Do you mind telling the story for the 1 millionth time?
Oh, well, I'm sorry if it's boring for those of you that have heard this story.
No.
But this was a lifetime ago. This was in 1993. I'd been working for the International Fund for Animal Welfare since the mid-1980s after I came out to Hong Kong. And a journalist friend of mine called me and said he'd just come back from a bear farm in China. And knowing that I was working in animal welfare, he just said, Jill, you have to go along and see it. So my interest was piqued, and I grabbed a couple of friends. We went over the border into China, and we joined a tour group of Japanese and Taiwanese tourists and found this farm. And the farmer was obviously intent on selling bear bile. So he was sort of talking to everyone at the shop, and no one was allowed to go and see where the bears were extracted. But because we'd been briefed by the journalist, we snuck away from the group. We found some steps into a basement and went down and just came across what I call my living hell. It was hard to see at first because it was dark and gloomy, but there were 32 cages, each one containing a moon bear. And as I got closer towards the cages, I heard this strange popping vocalization. And every time I got closer, it became louder and more frantic. And I realized that was my first lesson. It was the sound of fear from an animal that, was anticipating that I was going to do it harm. And when I looked at their bodies, I realized why they were afraid. They had grown into the cage bars, they had scars, they had metal catheters sticking out of their abdomens that were going into their gallbladders and milking them of their bile. Oh gosh, they had teeth removed, they had paw tips cut back to make them less dangerous through the milking process. And anyway, I was walking around in absolute shock, as you can imagine, and I felt something touch my shoulder, and I realized I'd just backed too closely into a cage. And as I turned around, there was the female moon bear with her paw through the bars of the cage. And I always say I did the most ridiculously stupid thing of my life. You just don't do this. We've rescued so many bears. They are unpredictable. They are extremely aggressive when they want to be, especially under such traumatic conditions. But her paw was there, and I took it. It just almost unconsciously, I took it. And instead of hurting me, she just squeezed my fingers, and we looked into each other's eyes, and everything changed. Everything about my life from that second changed. I just realized that a hugely profound moment had happened between us. And I walked out of that farm knowing that that one bear was going to be responsible for something, I don't know, as I say, indescribable. And indeed she was. She started everything. She started the dream of the China bear rescue, then the Vietnam sanctuary, and everything about Animals Asia that we are today was started by one bear.
Oh my goodness. It's really incredible, Jill. So you've talked about it a little bit, but now we have this other image up. And I hate to go into this, but I just really want it to be, I want it to be said, and I want people to hear, like, tell us more about the experience of these bears. And then we're going to talk about a few more things, take a break, and talk about all the solutions and good things. But I do want to take a moment to talk about what is the life like for this bear.
Well, bear farming is there to extract the bile from the bear's gallbladders that is used in traditional medicine across Asia. It's an industry that grew up from trying to prevent wild bears from being caught and killed for their whole gallbladders. So this was why that they were caged and surgically mutilated, frankly, for their bile. And it's only been occurring since about the 80s, and before that, as I say, bears were killed. But what we're finding over the years is that bear farming is not saving the species in the wild, because bears are dying on the bear bar farms, and their numbers are being supplemented again from the wild to refurbish those farms. It's an industry that is so unconscionably cruel. It's so irrelevant because of the fact that bear bile can easily and cheaply be replaced by herbs and synthetics. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I do want your viewers to understand that bear bile works. We can't dismiss this as some sort of quack medicine. Mm. We have to understand that it has a discipline in Chinese and Vietnamese and traditional medicine pharmacopoeia. And it's always been used as a cold medicine to treat heat-related illnesses. Mm. But again, we know it can be replaced by 54 different herbs in China, 32 different herbs in Vietnam, and of course by the synthetic alternative that's replicated in a laboratory for pennies without using bears. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then this, I've got one more of you still doing the work. Is this substance, does it make its way to the US ever?
Illegally, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, bear farming is a domestic industry, so it can only be sold in the countries where it is manufactured. So if you find bear bile in the US, it's got there illegally. And, please alert the authorities, because this is something obviously that we can all do something about if we do find it in our local traditional medicine shop. There are, I have to say, many, many ethical traditional medicine doctors mm-hmm. that completely say that no one is going to die for the lack of bear bile, and don't prescribe it and don't sell it. And this is growing across the world in mm-hmm. traditional medicine terms. That people just don't want to use this horrible substance that comes from such despicable treatment of bears on bile farms.
Jill, when you started, did you have was there an understanding of how many bile farms there were and how many bears were incarcerated into this?
I mean, there are thousands and thousands of bears, across the Asia continent that are being farmed, and many bear farms as well. And this is something over the years, of course, that we've been addressing in a holistic way. This is not just rescuing bears. This is not pointing the finger at those countries. You're never going to win a battle by doing it, as everybody knows. Who likes being told what to do? So it's talking about demand reduction. It's talking about public education programs. It's talking about working collaboratively with government officials. It's talking about getting celebrities involved, and of course bringing supporters across the world, into an understanding that together we can end this trade. And this is exactly what is happening in Vietnam now, where we've got the agreement from the Vietnam government to end bear bar farming once and for all. So this really sets us on the trajectory, if you like, for achieving one of the founding goals of the organization.
It's incredible. All right, well, we're going to leave bears for just a minute, because I think that before you were a bear person, you were a dog and cat person, correct?
Yes.
So I just want to show this picture. And I've already told you, Jill, and really most people I know that I've recently rescued a beautiful dog from the Korean meat trade, with the help of Humane Society in Korea and the wonderful people there who are doing what they can to end things there. And I feel like I think of you when I see my dog Lucy. So Animals Asia is also very dedicated to this. And can you for now just tell us about the problem?
Yeah, I mean, this picture that you're showing, this was taken quite a few years ago, and actually you can actually see the image of me taking the picture in the dog's eyes. This is a dog that I will never ever forget. This was during an investigation of these horrible live animal markets. This was in China, and we actually went back a few days later, because I just thought, I've just got to try and rescue that dog. At the end of these investigations, you're so traumatized that, the one thing that you think you can do is actually just take an animal that you can help at the end of it. And I went back, and of course she'd gone from that cage, but there was a black dog that was actually smiling at me through the bars of the cage, and I rescued her, and she was with us for the next 10 years. But the industry itself that these dogs represent is, again, absolutely brutal. And it's something that Animals Asia has been attempting to end with our fantastic team in China, led by Suki, that for many years, decades in fact now. And I should say as well that another one of our founding goals has been achieved, because last year China removed dogs, and by default cats, from the livestock list, which means that it is now illegal to sell dogs and cats for consumption in China. Now, having said that, Amy, we've still got a long way to go, because there's big pushback from the industry. People will see that dogs are still being slaughtered. But again, there are government officials across the country that are responding in a fantastic way, and are making not only the selling of dogs and cats illegal for consumption, but they're making the actual consumption of dogs and cats illegal as well. So we are getting there. And again, with public education programs, we're going to get there quicker.
You're incredible. That is amazing. Well, what we're going to do now is we have developed a special cocktail, Jill, just for you in Animals Asia. And we like to look at it like in the beginning of the show, we're talking a lot about the issues and we're feeling so overwhelmed. We take a little drink break, of which it can be non-alcoholic. So please don't think we're pushing alcohol here. And then we're going to really dig into some of the solutions that you just mentioned and some of the other wonderful ways Animals Asia is just showing us the way. So let's see. We are ready to share this drink, and the two of us are going to hide.
Hi, welcome to the cocktails section of Cocktails and Conservation. My name is Adrienne, and I'm the Conservation Manager here at Oakland Zoo. We are so excited to have Animals Asia join us as a speaker tonight. So excited, in fact, that we made our very own cocktail for them, and I'm going to make for you right now the Moon Bear Rise. The Moon Bear Rise is inspired by these beautiful creatures with a nice warm brown body and a beautiful white crest represented on top with the white foam. All you need is a shaker, lemon, or ghee, which is used in a lot of tiki drinks, or you can use simple syrup in its place. Rye, amaro, egg whites, and a nice chilled coupe glass. So to start the drink, you want to start with lemon juice. I love fresh lemon juice, using 3/4 of an ounce. That is about half of a lemon. Very juicy lemon. You're gonna add next 3/4 of an ounce of orgeat. Half an ounce of rye. And 1.5 ounces of amaro. You're going to shake this up on its own. You can also add ice to it if you want to cool off the flavor. And it's just a really quick shake, just to get the flavors mixed. You pour it into the coupe glass. Next, you're going to shake up your egg whites. And this is just a single egg white. You're shaking it for about a minute just so it gets nice and foamy. This is optional. Some people don't like to have raw eggs on their drinks. The rest of the drink is fine without it. But this really adds that nice foam that you're looking for. And now, you pour the nice foam right on top. To garnish, you can use anything. I really like citrus because it gives it a bright flavor. Just add a nice little twist in there. And a little fresh rosemary flowers just for color. And that is our signature cocktail, the Moon Bear Rise. Thank you so much, Jill, and everybody at Animals Asia for everything you're doing to protect this majestic species. Cheers.
Whoopsie, here we go. Ah, can we hear you? No, we can't get over there. There we go. We are unmuted. Cheers still.
Cheers, Amy. I have nothing to toast you with, but cheers.
Oh.
I have a bare pencil holder. Cheers.
Cheers. All right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see the video, Amy. I'm so sorry. But I was having fun looking at all the comments. Wonderful. Thank you all.
Okay. Oh, you didn't see the video.
Kelly,
Oh, because of where you were. We will show you the whole thing. It's a lovely video with a really yummy drink, vegan option, and it's pretty good. Well, to you, Jill.
Oh, it's back at you, Amy, and to Oakland. Thank you so much. Privileged to be here.
All right. Well, now the better part where we get into these solutions. Let's just start with this image, Jill. So how did you have the idea to start a sanctuary?
Oh gosh, it just seemed the most obvious thing, and we were very, very lucky in those early days, because when we sort of sent out pictures of bear farming in the early 1990s, we actually got put in touch with a legislator here in Hong Kong called David Chu. And he just said, I have some land in China. I'd love you to, do more than just talk about ending bear farming, but to help the bears too. So he allowed us to build a very small sanctuary in the I4 days for 9 bears, which we did. And then that went on to, bigger and bigger heights. After founding Animals Asia in 1998, we decided, gosh, we need to build a bigger sanctuary, which is what we did in Chengdu in Sichuan province for 200 bears. And then, of course, in Vietnam for 200 bears as well. And now looking to build our 3rd sanctuary, also in Vietnam, for 300 bears to finally end bear farming there forever, for good. It will be done.
My goodness. All right, I'm gonna drink.
I mean, that sounds so simplistic. I can't tell you the hoops.
It does not sound simplistic.
It's
so
a lot.
Through what, so I have an image here of it looks like your staff working on a bear. What condition are these bears in, and what is cannot be a simple process. And we are going to talk about your latest rescue. But in
Right.
general, for a
Yeah.
bear to go from this horrible condition
Yeah.
they're in to get the treatment and then to get there, like what is that process with your bear, with your staff?
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to pay kudos to the most fantastic teams in China and Vietnam. You know, in China, led by Ryan, in Vietnam, led by Heidi. Our vet and bear team are just second to none. They really, really are. This is actually an example of working in the field, you know, when we rescue bears. So you're working under less than, you know, aseptic conditions, you know, with all the different issues that arise from, you know, without being able to work in your hospital at both sites. But you're just looking at an animal that we call a broken bear. You know, there are so many physical and psychological issues attached to the practice of bear farming. You know, their gallbladders have been horribly compromised. They are usually, you know, full of black sludge rather than bile. They are inflamed. They are thickened. They are adhesed very often to other organs, including the liver. Again, many of the bears, you know, they've been declawed, they've had their teeth cut back, or they've chewed on bars to try and sort of, you know, in terms of their frustration during years, if not decades on the farm. So they've damaged all of their teeth. You're just looking and thinking, where on earth do we start, you know, in many cases. But you just have to obviously triage those bears, you know, get an understanding of the pathology, you know, the urgency, which ones prioritize first. It's chaotic, I have to say, but at the same time, our teams are so on it. They are so professional, and they put their emotions to one side, and they just become the professionals the bears need them to be.
We have a question. Well, it's epic what what you do to get them to this place. This is an interesting question from Nancy Clark, and she said, "Can any of the bears be rewilded?"
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, you know, this is something we would love to do, but you know, obviously the bears, they've come in with such terrible injuries. They've spent their lives in a cage on a farm, so they just don't have those sort of, you know, defenses, if you like, to protect themselves in the wild, or, you know, to the understanding or the, you know, the development from their mother to be able to be released into the wild. Although there was one occasion that in China a few years ago that we were invited by the authorities to rescue Rainbow, a bear that had been illegally trapped in the wild. And it was fantastic. You know, our team just got to grips with, actually they had to remove the limb. So she ended up being a three-legged bear, but we kept her for the minimal amount of time. We retained her wildness. We tried to keep a human distance from her. And she was a very angry and aggressive bear, and we thought, great, we'll keep that. And we were working with people from the IUCN Bear Specialist Group, and finally we released her into the wild just a few weeks later. And then her GPS collar broke, unfortunately. So we thought, well, that's that. We just have to wish that she got on okay. But then a year later, we got sent some film footage in the field, in the mountains where she'd been released from the forestry, from the government of China. And there she was, hopping around on her three legs, healthy, happy, just gorgeous to see that.
That's amazing.
But, you know, in the future, we definitely, you know, we would be open to wild release. But again, you have to have buy-in from the local community. You have to understand the habitat around you. You know, there's so many things that we have to establish before doing something like that. And in the meantime, it's just quicker and more efficient to rescue them into sanctuary to end this industry once and for all.
Well, as somebody who is a fan of amazing enclosures like we have at the zoo, when I see these pictures of your sanctuary, I just feel so happy for these bears. No, it's not the wild, but it is so beautiful and natural and full of so much enrichment and other bears. What was it like the first time you saw a bear walk into the sunshine and walk on grass?
Oh, I'll never forget it. I just sank to my knees and cried. I'll never forget that moment. It was like the culmination of everything that we dreamed for, you know, and still that feeling doesn't go away. I know that all of our teams in China and Vietnam would say exactly the same. You know, the sheer joy of seeing a bear in absolute wonder as it takes it, his or her first steps on grass. And then just does things like zoomies. If you've ever seen a bear do a zoomie, it is the most hilarious and wonderful thing, again, that just makes you sob with joy, because they can't contain themselves. They are hysterical with happiness as they just tear around the enclosure. Even if they've got 3 legs, they'll try to climb trees and things as well. And they'll fall off their platforms. They'll do somersaults just because they can, play with each other. And wondrous to see.
Oh my goodness. Ah, that's incredible. All right. Well, I love that when you get the Animals Asia information, you get individual bear stories, and it really seems to show you that like these are all individuals with totally different personalities, and it's so nice that you guys get to know these animals. It's not bear 402 and bear 27.9. So, when I asked for photos, this is Animals Asia sent me some bear photos, and I'm just going to ask you a little bit about these bears. So, who's this?
Okay, this is Jasper and Aussie. Aussie's still with us. Actually, his real name is Delaney. I sometimes still call them by the nicknames we called them, decades ago. So Jasper and Aussie. Jasper sadly left us a few years ago, but he was with us for 15 years after being another 15 years in a crush cage. So he was crushed, flattened to the bars of the cage with a 6-inch metal catheter protruding from his abdomen. And he just turned out to be the most charismatic bear. I've got a very good friend in the US called Mark Beckoff, who's an animal ethologist. Yeah. And you all know, everyone knows Mark Beckoff. And he always calls Jasper his brother. And he still says that Jasper's living with him now. Jasper left us, as I say, a few years ago. But if ever there was a photographer on site, they would say, we got some great pictures, but who was that bear with the yellow eyebrows that photobombed every picture? And I'd say, yeah, that would be Jasper. And if ever I was down feeling stressed, I'd just go on my walkie-talkie and say to all in the team, I'm going to switch off for an hour. I've got a meeting with Jasper, and everyone would know what I meant. So these two, they became firm friends. They would just have bear bundles of play the whole day and keep us as entertained as they kept themselves. Beautiful bears.
I love it. Oh my goodness. All right. Who's this? Saffron?
Oh, this is Saffron. So this is, I'm glad to go over to Vietnam now as well. And this was an amazing picture, I think, taken by our wonderful Nok, who works on site with us. And Saffron was one of our recently rescued bears. And she's an ex-circus bear. And there you can see, I love this picture because she just looks so guilty, like she's come back from her 3rd trip to the buffet. And this is it, once they're rescued, once they're no longer in cages, once they've got those choices, it's almost they're looking at this smorgasbord of food in the sanctuary and just grabbing as much as they can and bringing it back to the safety of their den so they can munch on it, without any competition from the others.
All right, one more. Missy?
Oh, God, this is Misty. Yeah, this is an old picture of when she was a cub. So, this just shows, I think, again, the incredible professionalism of our team, the enrichment that we give little cubbies to bring joy into their lives, because they would ideally be with their mothers for 2 years, but they've actually seen their mothers killed in front of them so that they can be then snatched for the bile trade. And so, giving them a non-toxic, this is a baby bubble bath that we give them, and just literally our team are their mothers. They teach them, they're sitting in front of them, eating in front of them. So, just giving them toys to play with, comfort throughout their lives until they grow into adulthood. And this is just one example of just making them feel, happy, I guess, on site as well.
I love it. Here's a quick question from Daniel Flynn, and he's been to a zoo in Ho Chi Minh City, and there were moon bears in a small enclosure. Do you ever rescue bears right from those organizations?
We in Vietnam, we will rescue bears wherever we're asked to rescue bears. It's as simple as that, and zoos, I have to say, in Vietnam, they are beginning to be light years away from where they were when we first started. Mm-hmm. So we've got programs led by Dave, our animal welfare director, who go along to these facilities and work with the keepers and the carers and the management staff as well, in terms of upgrading these facilities. And in terms of, our Vietnam bear and vet team, they go along as well and help with enrichment, upgrading the enclosures, and just giving these bears a better life now at the zoos and other government facilities as well.
I see. Great. And then when you work with this incredible staff everywhere, I'm sure some of the staff originally doesn't know much about the issue or much about bears. Do you see a big change of heart or change in understanding once people are part of it?
Yeah, for sure, Amy. What a great question. It's we call this, it's no coincidence. It's called a family of Animals Asia, because it just absolutely is. And people, as you rightly say, when they join us, perhaps some of them are not quite understanding of what we do. But then we have a very good promotion program, so where our Chinese and Vietnamese staff can grow up through the ranks, being promoted from number 4 in charge, 3 in charge, 2 in charge. Bear team supervisors, managers, etc. We have intern programs at both sites where we're, training vets, Chinese and Vietnamese vets, especially now in Vietnam in preparation for our new sanctuary, which is hopefully going to break ground later this year. So that ultimately our new sanctuary in a few years' time will only be run by the local community, by local vets, local bear carers. Of course, Animals Asia will be overseeing over the next few years, but our goal is to have it locally inspired and managed.
Unbelievable. I didn't know that. That's fantastic. So I have a note that this to me is just a sign of your success. Even though this is a really intense, the story gets crazy. But in 2014, a bear farmer got a hold of you, a bear farmer manager, and said they wanted to make a change in their bear bile farming. Like, how did that feel to know that somebody reached out to you in that way?
This was one of the turning points, I think, in our existence. And this was in China. And as you say, the bear farmer, he was a Buddhist, and he'd taken over a horticulture facility that actually contained a bear farm as well. And there's Smudge, yeah. And he and his daughter as well loved animals, and he just felt he couldn't be a part of the industry. So he called us and he asked if we would turn the farm into a sanctuary, which at first we were very excited about and we wanted to do. But then logistics were against us, and lots of things were thrown at us, and we felt in the end we can't do this. We asked if we could actually take those bears to our sanctuary in China, and actually we would then be beset by so much red tape. It took another 8 years, from actually 2013 to this year, when we finally were able to transport 101 bears safely from that ex-bear farm. And all this time, Ryan and our team in Chengdu, they were working on site. Previously Nick, before that, my goodness, we've seen a changeover of staff as well. But they were working on this terrible farm, ex-bear farm, that was no longer.
Is this that bear farm? Okay.
That one,
so
right? No longer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Amy. Sorry. No longer extracting bears. Extracting bile, but certainly working under very dangerous and very dirty conditions, and very stressful conditions as well, for 7 years. Yeah, until finally, April and May of this year. Oh my goodness!
Take us through this. So you had to watch this from Hong Kong.
Yeah, because I couldn't get there. It was 3 separate journeys, and it was 25 trucks in all. 1,000 trips, 1,000 kilometers every journey, 50 hours overnight throughout the day, stopping to feed these bears every 4 hours and medicate them and everything. A humongous task to rescue just one bear, let alone 101 bears. But our team smashed it so professionally, so kindly, so effortlessly, except it wasn't. They weren't getting any sleep. It was literally overnight in the coaches, just making sure that those bears were safe and as happy as they could be in a transport cage, in a truck, all the way home over those miles back to Chengdu.
This is incredible. So this is the biggest bear rescue in the world. I mean, 101 bears.
Right, right.
Incredible.
And
So
how proud I am of Ryan and Molly and the rest of the team. How just wonderful that they did this. You know, they should so be celebrating as they are there, because I can't. I've got no words to say for how much I love and admire them and how proud I am that they did this.
I was just reading your blog, Jill, and you were talking about this thing that happened, and it said the final call with Boris after the final truck arrived home will never leave me. I began speaking about the dream we had together in 2013 to help those bears, and to hear his calm, kind, ever pragmatic words in response that said it was never a dream, it was just unfinished business.
I know.
So,
Top a quote like that.
so I was going to ask, and you've already said this, but I'll just ask again. Like, you must inspire your team, and your team must just really inspire you.
Oh, they just do. They just do. You know, Boris has been with us from the beginning. He was a founding member. He's my Chinese brother, and I adore him. You know, and just the stress again that it takes out of these people, everybody involved. You know, and still now it's not the end of the game. You know, imagine a sanctuary that suddenly has 101 bears on your doorstep. You know, I mean, kudos to again Brian and all in the team who every single day are just getting over all of those issues and problems and integrating those bears together, releasing them into, you know, enclosures, grassy enclosures. It's just phenomenal, you know, getting these bears friendly together when they're not a social species in the wild, you know, all of those issues. And then I think, again, just sitting back and loving every second when they're doing those zoomies.
Oh my God. Okay. I need to look for those videos. Well, I don't want to leave bears because this is so amazing, but we brought up dogs and cats. So we have to kind of get to some of the amazing things you're doing there too. And I think you brought up this incredible being. This looks like a mythical creature, but who is this?
Sorry, I can't. Oh, this is Tojai. I can see. So I spoke to you a little while ago. So she was my rescue dog, along with Muppet from the live animal markets of China. And she stayed with us for 10 years. She's literally, that was her smile. That was one of her smiles that saved her life on the live animal market.